Welcome to another edition of our Sawdust City Happy Hour tastings. This one is going to be a fun one. It's because it is one that I have enjoyed thoroughly over the last couple of months with our friendship and relationship with Sawdust City Brewing. I know a lot of you out there. I've seen pictures of Ben Grant, who covers the Toronto Argonauts for us here on CFP and, of course, runs X's and Argos. When he came on draft night, he was sitting with a binary system. It was like 11 p.m. He was sitting with a binary system double IPA, and I said, Ben, that seems very late to be doing that. Now, it's of course going to look super weird because I've got the green screen going, but it's a beautiful can design, as well as, of course, the Brewmaster and co-founder of Sawdust City Brewing Company, Sam Corbeil, joins me to talk about one of your babies, Sam. This is one of the interesting ones that a lot of people identify with Sawdust City Brewing.
Well, last year when we started the binary system series, it was the idea was like, the idea of smash beers have been around for a while, which is single malt and single hop. Smash. It's an acronym. And then, so I thought, why not two? And being a giant Star Trek nerd, I was like, there's all these episodes about binary systems and twos. So I'm like, well, let's do one with the binary, and we're going to rotate them. And in the end, we'll find out which one people like the best.
Nice.
And then we'll use go to the So we did 4 of them last year. Each one had 2 malts and 2 hops, and we switched them up each time. First one, they all got really received really well, but this one with the Chinook and Mosaic really seemed to resonate the most with the people. So that's why we went back with this one. I think everything was in terms of ABV and the general recipe, the proportions of one, the base malt, 2, the secondary malt, and the weight of the hops. So it was like, apples to apples as best as we could. And, this particular combination, for whatever reason, really stuck to it. And I'm glad, because I think it's great. It's got this like wonderful dankness, but still super tropical at the same time. Yeah. You have a newer can than me. I got that. It's still only 2 months old. So it's still pretty good, but
nice.
I've been avoiding these because they're too drinkable, and the 8.5 just catches up. The only time I really have them is when I go to my brother's house because he loves it, and it usually ends off the night. And then we're like, "Will you bring that over?"
Yeah, the first thing that jumps out to me on these, and I'm like everybody else right now, I love a great IPA and I love a strong IPA. So when I saw this in your lineup, I was intrigued. And then the first time that I had it, because it's readily available in Hamilton LCBOs where I am, is that, I had a couple of them and I was like, I love an IPA that has that bitterness, has that IPA, but also is relatively smooth to drink your way through, and it doesn't feel like you're being punished while you're drinking it, because I think there's some of that, but the smell on this is amazing. As soon as you crack the can, the smell is like really strong. Like you're saying, it has kind of that dank vibe to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I gotta say, Mosaic, which is what we use, and we actually used a version of Mosaic, which is called Mosaic Cryo, where they actually like freeze it and remove all the parts. It's basically like a super condensed Mosaic. And Mosaic is, over the years, has become one of my favorite hops because it's like cheating. It just, everything you put Mosaic in, you want to make it taste good, just add some Mosaic. It's great. And it has this wonderful like cross between old school dank and this wonderful berry tropical flavor. So it really brings a level of awesomeness to everything. So having this paired with Chinook, which is, if you were to travel back in time to the early 2000s, late 90s, that was one of the C hops, which was like Chinook, Cascade, Centennial, Columbus. They were all the rage in the West Coast IPA world. So they were all about dank, resin, pine, super sticky. So, but Mosaic is sort of the new world hop, it's tropical juice sort of thing. So we took some old world stuff, some old school hops, and mixed them with the new world, and I think the outcome was great. It was actually on the suggestion of one of our brewers, Brendan, who's now our Toronto sales rep, but he really wanted to play with this because he's like, I think Chinook is underplayed, man. It's such a great hop. You should bring it back, and I'm glad he did because I think it turned out really well.
That's really cool that it's new school and old school combined, because again, for me, as somebody who loves reading the side of cans and has this base understanding of a lot of the different types of beers, I went through a phase where, I would go to tastings at different places around Hamilton, or I would, read what hops they were using in it. And I don't really know what the hops are bringing to the table like you do when you're talking about them. But every time that I would see Mosaic, Chinook, and I'm trying to think of some of the others that are used in the IPA. Like, is there Amarillo? I believe that was one that was gets used in Idaho 7. I had seen in a bunch of different ones as well. But the way that those all play off each other and create different styles of IPA, I found really intriguing when I got into really falling in love with them.
Yeah, like that's, the hops are sort of, it was an arms race. It was, you learn about, what weapons you have. And when we used to go to these conferences, they'd always have like, what's the new cool hop? And you walk around top suppliers and they'd have them on display and you try them. And I've been to a couple hop rubs, here and in Europe and in Washington. And when you do rub them, you get an idea, but I don't ever really think that it showcases it until you've had it in the beer. And that's sort of the idea behind this, was like Smash or, the Binary. You need to put it on full display so you can get an idea of what the actual hop's going to bring. And we've done that over the years with a number of different hops. The first time we did it was, we had this series called Adaptation. And I'm not going to lie, it was a full bore mistake. I was actually in Lake Louise with my family on vacation, and I got a call from a brewer, and he's like, so one of the brewers dry hopped the wrong tank.
Oh.
He was supposed to dry hop Golden Beach, but he dry hopped a Gateway Kolsch, which is like a German style lager ale, very, simple lawnmower beer. So now we have a Kolsch that's been dry hopped with 20 kilos of Mosaic hops. I'm like, okay, cool. So that's waste. So I'm like, okay, here we have two options. We either like just dump the beer, or we lean into it and we create a new beer. So I'm like, let's wait a couple days, see how it tastes, and if it's good, just throw another 20 kilos in, and we'll call it something else. So we did that, and it actually turned out really well. And we're like, okay, and then the Adaptation series was born. And what we did, instead of just calling it like Happy Mistake, which you might see once in a while, we're like, we meant to do this. This was, we're trying out new hops. It's like Kolsch is a base, and we're going to try it. And we ended up doing a number of different hops based on that series, because it actually did work really well. So in order to get the idea of what this hop brings, we would dry hop a tank of Kolsch with a ridiculous amount. We did Idaho 7, we did Azaka, we did Mosaic, we did Sabro, and they all turned out really well. They really did showcase those hops. And until you put it into play, you're never really going to find out what it brings to the table.
Is Mosaic I don't want to say like your favorite hop, because you're going to have a billion favorites because you love all sorts of different styles and all sorts of different hops to give those styles. But is Mosaic the one that you look at and you say, like, this is maybe the most flexible, maybe this is the most usable, maybe this is like, how would you compare it in kind of like the power structure of beer? Because I see it so often. And for me, a lot of the times, if I'm looking at an IPA or really any beer, if I see Mosaic on the side of the can, I'm like, I'm going to like this.
Well, I think it's kind of like the Holy Trinity. 3 big hops that I think kind of rule the roost right now. And they will move and shake out of as time passes. But right now, to me, the Holy Trinity is Mosaic, Simcoe, and Citra, which I think you'll find a lot of beers differently based. And I guess it will also depend on where you sort of started your brewing career, those 3 hops. It's sort of like the celery, carrots, and onions, and basically the base of any good recipe. You can put these in it, and you're going to end up with something pretty tasty. And that's what we use in juicing, which is why it sells so great, because you're basically using the full force. It's like power hops unite, and you create this super Voltron of hops. And that's what you have to do. But Mosaic is one of those three, and Simcoe is in our Lone Pine, and Citra is in Narnia. Like, we don't always cram them together, but they definitely are. We use them quite a lot, and like with our Everyday Magic, we use. I think one of the ones that's sort of on the edge because it's from Australia, it's a little bit expensive. Galaxy. I think a lot of people lean on Galaxy. It's one of my favorite hops. Our Golden Beach Pale Ale, which we brewed up until about years ago, which we are brewing next week for the first time in 2 years, and it'll be coming back for a summer hit, is a Galaxy Mosaic combo.
Wow.
Which is super drinkable and literally was the first beer we ever brewed, came out with at Sawdust City, our first commercially available beer. This will be the 10th anniversary on November 18th, so pretty excited about that, and glad to be bringing it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's intriguing to me too that you can have similar hops used in a variety of different things that come out as completely different results based on the way that you kind of piece them together, right? And that the beach beers and things that are easy and light drinking, you would not think of that having Mosaic in it, but again, it's flexible, right? So you can use it with a variety of different stuff, and that's probably the key to it. Where does Binary System, I don't want to say rank for you, but in the pantheon of Sawdust City IPAs? Like if we're looking at Everyday Magic, we're looking at Lone Pine, we're looking at Binary System, Juicin has got some of that IPA-ish to it too as well. So where does this kind of shake out for you in terms of the ones that not necessarily are your favorite kids, but that you're proud of, that you guys are really happy with?
Well, I am very happy with this, and I like that, we did the 4 of them last year, and it was a bit of a series, and for good or ill, it's always going to remind me of the pandemic year, because
True.
It's literally was that year, and it played out it's been playing out, and as this tweedles, like, sort of fades out of the LCBO, we are coming out of this now. So this will be ultimately tied to the pandemic for me for the rest of my life. But I'm very happy with it. And it also sort of solidified how we made our hazy IPAs, where we became very comfortable with the process, because up until then, like, we had been playing with it. It started with juicing like way back, like 5 years ago, and sort of at the edge of beginning, sort of learning how to do it, playing with different yeasts, playing with different ratios and water chemistry. And when we hit it, we're like, okay, we got that base down. So we knew the water chemistry, we knew the ratios of protein malts to base malts and the weights of the hops. It was just changing the pieces around. So it really did that. It did solidify. So it's up there. It's going to always be up there for me. Like I said, I do avoid it. I'm scared of the 8.5. But it tastes good. I'm glad we did it today.
Yeah, I am too. I was just about to say I'm almost done, and I don't know if it's because I had a long day in the sun at work, or if it's a Friday, or what it is, but it goes down pretty easy, honestly, for an 8.5, which is a credit to you guys for what you've done. But at what point? This is an interesting one I haven't asked you before. At what point do you get scared? Because like the spring saison, the there's no way of knowing is 7.7, I believe, correct? So, I mean, for me, that's like right on the edge of where I go, okay, maybe I just have like one of these, like maybe one, maybe two. Because then if I were to have Little Norway, I'm like, oh, I can hang it on the back deck all day. You know what I mean? Like you have different value systems for different ABVs, and this is certainly on the higher end, although we haven't even done the lusciousness yet. So that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, so I don't know, if you asked 35-year-old me, I probably would have said, this was okay. Ask 44-year-old me, and I'm like, anything north of 6 is problems. It's problems. So like, I don't know, like I try to like balance it out, but the lusciousness, like I love it, but it is so silky smooth, but it's like 9.5. I did a beer and cheese with a group from Winnipeg last week, selling through this company in Manitoba, and we did Twin Oaks, which was 10.5, and it knocked me for a loop. I'm like, I'm not gonna have the whole thing, but then I did have the whole thing, because you're sitting there talking, and they were having cheese, and then it ended up the guy on the other end was actually the cheesemaker. And then he actually sent me some cheese this week and I just had it. It's fantastic.
Nice.
But as you're talking, you sort of get into it. And then I walked upstairs and quickly realized that 10.5 is far too big.
No, my favorite one is though, Sam, I feel like I unintentionally got you drunker than you would have been, or you wish to have been, when the day that we did the tasting of, I believe, soft-bodied pills, leading into you doing the Lager Series tasting online with everybody else. And I was like, oh man, I didn't realize that I was doubling down. Sam had to hammer back one with me in the afternoon, and then he had to drink 4 in the, and you were saying like, oh, I'm only doing like the, the half or 3/4 when you were on. And then I'm looking at your glass during the tasting where you're on and discussing all of the Lager Series. I'm like, Sam, those are full ass glasses. I'm like, I don't know what you think you're pouring, but, and I was like, man, that's a lot to go to work on.
It was, the best laid plans. But when you start talking and you're getting into it, like, and it's the same in an in-person tasting where, it's hard to, you get really into it and you're having a good time and everyone, actually it's harder at home. When you're in person, it's easier to you push it off to the side because you're in an outside environment. When you're at home and you're in a safe environment and Zooming, what does it matter? You're like, well, it's fine. I'll just walk upstairs and go to sleep. I don't have to drive anywhere, but it's a little bit harder. Yeah, that was a good day. It was also the first game of the playoffs, so I was a little bit like,
yes. Yeah, I remember everybody talking during that tasting that was done online, which was fantastic, by the way, that everybody was talking and saying, oh yeah, the Leafs game. And then the Tavares injury happened. And I saw people in the chat during that tasting being like, okay, can I have all 4 right now? Like, I'd like to just try and like act like everything is okay at this point. But yeah, that was a good day. You guys do a lot of great stuff online. People should check out your handle again on Twitter at Sawdust City Beers, where they can get a hold of it. And I remember from that tasting as well, somebody saying, you never go full Norway. Well, I just did full Norway. It's all done.
Hey, that's right. We got to go back to that. We got to pull that out, the full Norway. Thank you for bringing that back.
Yeah, I think that's the move going forward. But it is delicious. It is Binary System Double IPA. Again, you can get it all over the place in the LCBO, forever attached to the pandemic, which we're finally making our way out of. Sam, thank you as always. Great to catch up with you.
Thanks, man. Have a good one, Marshall.
Cheers.